Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Today on the Italian Radio Hour, we step into a truly innovative corner of the culinary world, one where tradition meets transformation. Our guest is Tara Punzone, acclaimed chef, owner of the first 100% plant-based Italian restaurant in the United States, Pura Vita, and author of the vibrant cookbook Vegana Italiana. Born and raised in a lively Italian family in Brooklyn, Tara grew up surrounded by the aromas, rituals, and deep cultural meaning of Italian cuisine. When she embraced a vegan lifestyle, she didn't abandon those traditions, she reinvented them. With creativity, bold flavors, and respect for her heritage, Tara has crafted a culinary path that proves you can honor your roots while living in alignment with your values. Today, we will explore her journey, her philosophy, and practical strategies for anyone curious about plant-forward cooking, from stocking a vegan Italian pantry to reimagining iconic dishes like carbonara, meatballs, and cannoli without sacrificing taste, texture, and nostalgia. Don't go anywhere, ma prima pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Tara, welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. It's such a pleasure to have you. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This is
so
exciting.
Busy from the West Coast, now on the East Coast, doing a major book signing. So where were you last night? Tell us a little bit about your Chicago experience.
Yeah, so I'm in Chicago right now. It's cold here, by the way.
You're not used
last
to that
night
anymore, right?
I did an event in another restaurant here in Chicago called Kale My Name. It's a vegan restaurant. With a wonderful, very supportive restaurant owner who hosted me, and I cooked for everybody. It was a sold out event, and we did a little interview after the dinner, and it was amazing. They really made me feel very welcome, and I was like brought to tears, honestly. It was incredible.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. So, Tara, you grew up in a traditional Italian family in Brooklyn, where food is practically a second language. So, what dishes or food memories immediately come to mind when you think about your childhood?
Well, the first thing I think of always is Sunday sauce. I mean, every single Sunday of my entire life, from, being a little baby to the moment I moved out of the house and then some, the sauce started early in the morning on Sunday and was cooking all day. And the smells and the sounds of that pot of sauce are one of the most nostalgic things I can think of. Um, Normally, before I became vegetarian and then vegan, the sauce was meat sauce. It was what in Brooklyn or Long Island we called gravy.
And we're still trying to figure out why it started to be called gravy and why there's
Yeah,
such like arancine, depending on where you are in Sicily, you'll get a
exactly.
different.
It's a mystery, but but then once I became vegetarian and then vegan, my mother started to just make marinara sauce every Sunday without the meat, which very much upset some of the other members of my family. But because of that, I was able to, it really made me realize that changing these recipes really was possible, and not, I didn't have to give up my traditions and my culture, just to give up animal products in my food.
Mhm.
So it sent me off on my journey, and it all starts with the sauce always.
Yeah, Always with the sauce. Let's stir some sauce. So, but tell us a little bit about, when you first decided to embrace this the vegetarian and then vegan. Almost looks like you did in phases, perhaps. But what did that transition look like, and for someone raised in such a food meat-centric culture?
Well, as a young child, I mean, and still now, I love animals. Just I love them so much. I just don't know how to explain how I feel when animals are just so important, and they're a gift to us, to this planet. And so when I was a kid, I kind of, obviously, I didn't understand how the food got onto my plate, right? So you don't make that connection. But I still, even not knowing that, I still never really wanted to eat anything that was like on a bone, or very obviously something that you can see was part of somebody's body.
Mhm,
But I never really understood. And then in the fifth grade, I had a teacher who showed the class a video of a slaughterhouse.
mhm,
And this changed my life forever. I mean, obviously, it was a very upsetting video to watch. I'm sure that if anybody in the school knew that she was showing us that video, she probably would have been in a lot of trouble.
mhm,
But and in my memory, I can't say that it changed anybody else. I don't know that any other kid in the class was even affected by it, but she
mhm,
changed my life forever. So I'm very grateful for her for showing us that video. And I literally went home that day and, sat my parents down and told them what I saw and how it made me feel. And basically just said, I did not want to participate in this horrendous thing that I had just watched. And so I wasn't going to eat meat anymore.
mhm.
Now, it was just meat at that point. It was, becoming vegetarian in the blink of an eye. I threw my lunch away that day. Like, I was done. I was not, there was no way. And my parents were confused. They didn't really understand why or what I was talking about, or like how a kid could make this decision, basically. Um, but they were super supportive, thank God, and they really wanted to, honor my decision. And I also think that they assumed it was going to last a week or two because I was 10 years
I
old.
thought it was a phase. Yeah.
Yeah. But it not only lasted, but it also, once I started to read things. So my mom took me to a few. There was like two vegan restaurants in New York at the time, but this one restaurant called Angelica's Kitchen that my mom took me to once a week.
Mhm,
And in the front of that restaurant, there was a lot of literature about animal agriculture and this type of information. So I started to read everything that they had there. And the more I read and the more I educated myself, the more I realized that it wasn't just meat, it was dairy and eggs and also leather and, so on and so forth. So it took me a few years to, really eliminate all of the things that were animal products that were in our life. But by the age of about 12, I was completely vegan and, gave away my combat boots and my motorcycle jacket. And that really pissed my parents off, like, really. But, I just didn't want to have anything to do with any of it because it was
mhm.
all harmful to animals. Now that I understood that, I needed to eliminate
Yeah.
all of it. So,
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing to hear that your mom took you to Angelica's, because again, you said initially they were a little confused and they could have stayed in their state of confusion, right? So I feel that maybe that experience of learning more as you brought it forward maybe affected also their ability to understand and support you on this journey. So it's kind of, something, a growth that you probably did together, maybe on different levels, but
right.
I guess that's super important. So now, I'll show some of the pictures of the recipes in the book and so forth, because first of all, the first one that again. It's very striking, and can real Italian food be vegan? Chef Tara Punzone says yes. And then you have some amazing recipes and pictures about that I will be showing. But as I do that, Tell us about maybe the first classic Italian dish that you attempted to veganize, and how did you go about it?
The first real dish that I tried out was lasagna.
Okay.
Every holiday, every holiday, every excuse to make lasagna, my family would make lasagna, and it was, of course, my favorite thing to eat. When I was vegetarian, it was simple because she just eliminated the meat, and it was no problem. But then once I was vegan and I was not eating cheese, then it became really complicated because this was a very long time ago. There was no vegan cheese at the market that you could buy. So that was the first time I attempted to make a really traditional dish, but make it vegan. And
Mhm.
epic fail, horrible. Um, to replace the cheese, I used tofu, and
Mhm.
I just crumbled it up and put it in, in between the layers, and it doesn't work. It was just it was terrible. Um, and it took me many, many years to figure out how to make the cheese really actually taste,
Mhm.
full and fatty like cheese is supposed to taste, So, um, but I think that the failure part was good because it made me realize that I really wanted to understand how to cook things, how to be, part of these traditions. It made me realize that I cared enough to try to figure it out, even though it took me years to figure it to figure it out. Once I understood that combining the nuts, so in the cashew ricotta, I use it's sort of half tofu and half cashews. And the
Mm.
reason why I did that was the tofu is basically makes it fluffy and light, but the cashews were necessary to add that fat that, obviously cheese has a good amount of fat. So the tofu doesn't have that. So I needed to combine those two things together to make the right texture and mouthfeel for the ricotta. And as soon as I figured that out, the lasagna was amazing.
Yeah.
And of course got better and better every year that went by.
And would you use the same feeling also for the beautiful dish of ravioli that we're looking at? Or obviously, ravioli can be filled with many other things.
Many
But I was
things.
wondering, you have both the ravioli, and then I'm going to show the caprese salad. It's really mouth-watering. And so I was wondering if it's kind of your recipe for cheese is that one, or based on what the cheese is supposed to represent in the recipe, you might tweak, maybe also for the look of the cheese. Let me bring up the caprese, and so tell us, educate us about your cheese making, the cheese no cheese making experience.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, for the ravioli, for plain simple cheese ravioli, and also for the lasagna and many other things, the ricotta, which is a combination of tofu and cashew, is what we use, and that's in the basic section of the book. There's a section called the basics where all the cheese and the main sauces are listed. For the mozzarella, I use only cashew.
Mm,
This doesn't need the addition of tofu or anything else. Cashew is a type of nut that doesn't have a really heavy taste. So you can really transform that nut into something incredible. I mean, and basically into anything. Um, and so many, many years later, I started playing around with how to replicate a mozzarella, and I wanted it to be the correct texture for multiple uses, which are also different textures. So for the caprese, um, it requires a little bit less water
mhm.
in the recipe, and I explain this in the book. And for other things where you want something more melty, you just add a little bit more water, and it helps to make the recipe a little looser so that when you pull it, it kind of stretches. And
Wow. Okay,
yeah.
that's fantastic. So, and then also this is the book has become a bestseller. So, and for all the reasons that we are exploring now. So, from you were experimenting this when you were already a chef, or prior to then embrace the profession of being a chef and eventually opening up Pura Vita?
Well, the ricotta and many of other things that are in the book were long before I was ever a chef. I was trying to figure this out in my teenage years. So I needed to eat and I wanted to hold on to, I
I
wanted
want
to
to eat well
participate.
too. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, everything in my family revolves around food. I mean, everything. If you're celebrating something positive or if you're mourning or whatever it is, the family always came together for food. That was the most important thing. So I started to figure this out, not necessarily successfully, but I was working on it from my teenage years.
Mhm.
um, and then, so my grandparents owned a sandwich shop in Brooklyn, um, in which they worked, 15, 16-hour days. And my father always said to me when I was a kid, please, you could do anything you want in this life, anything.
Don't
Just
get in the food
please,
business.
please don't work in a restaurant. And so I tried to honor, like, I really listened to him and I tried to honor that, request because I understood why he was saying that. They really didn't have time for a lot of the simple pleasures of life, of traveling and these types of things. So he wanted me to have that experience. And so I went to art school. I got a master's degree in fine art. I had a career as a photographer. It
Wow.
was great, but I was still just longing to be in the kitchen. And so as a passionate vegan, I started to work with people mainly people who were sick, ill with some type of, you know, uh, major health issue, like usually it would be cancer or something like this. And I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian or anything like this, but I understood that plant-based food is what should be the focus when you're suffering with some type of disease like this. So I was going to people's homes and teaching them how to make plant-based food. That's it. By their request, people that understood that this was something that would help them, with their health issues. And I loved it so much because I really just wanted to be cooking more than anything else. I mean, that was it. It was just like, that's the passion.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I mean, basically one day I just realized I was really not happy doing what I was doing. And it was not enough for me. So I talk about it in the book. I'm a fan of Howard Stern. And he was talking about this restaurant that he went to on his radio show. He was talking about this restaurant called Pure Food and Wine,
Mhm.
which is no longer open, but it was a restaurant in New York City that was a fine dining, fully plant-based, actually raw restaurant. Um, and he talked about this restaurant so positively. He painted a picture that was just, you couldn't possibly not want to go there. I mean, it just sounded so incredible. And so I did go, and it was beautiful, this restaurant. And I asked, you know, the manager some questions about how one would be able to work in the kitchen of this restaurant. He brought me into the kitchen, introduced me to the chef Neil Harden. And, I came back a few days later and did a stage, which is like basically you're working
Uh,
for free just to understand what's going on.
mhm.
And the chef hired me by the end of the night. And that was it. That changed my life. Literally, just in that moment, I realized I was exactly where I needed to be, and I needed to just go with it because it was everything I never realized I needed.
Mhm.
so
In-
so yeah, so I worked in that restaurant for many, many years, and that chef, he really believed in me, and he saw something that I understood food and I understood how to cook and all these things. What I needed to learn was how to run a restaurant. So he took his time to really train me how to manage a kitchen, because this is something that,
They
you
don't
really need
teach
to
in
be,
school. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you
Mhm.
really need to be taught, because it's and being taught like in the environment as it's happening I think is the best way.
Mhm.
And I owe him so much. I mean, he really just he took his time with me, and he really taught me so much. I can't even begin to explain to you, but I knew I was in the right place. It was just absolutely what I was meant to be doing. So therein began my professional culinary journey.
Mhm. And
um,
and then eventually you made it happen. And Now, was this experience already on the West Coast, or maybe the perfect location, or maybe how did you decide to open up a Pura Vita? I believe in California. That's where you're based out of, right?
Yes, yes, we're in LA. No, I lived in New York for the majority of my life, so most of my experience professionally was in New York. Um, about 15, almost 15 years ago, I moved to LA with my partner. Really, for him, he is in the film industry, so there was this need for him to live in LA, and I really did not want to live in LA. Very adamantly was against the idea. But I just figured, okay, I have to just suck it up and give it a try. And if I don't like it, I can always go back to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's
Hmm.
not going anywhere. So I moved, and I really didn't like it at first. I mean, I'm such a New Yorker, and LA is just the polar opposite of New York in every way. But I had a really wonderful job in another vegan restaurant, and in that restaurant where I worked in LA, we had several locations, and I was the culinary director, so I ran all of these locations. And so this was something that was incredibly important for me because I was learning about business,
Hmm.
which is really important in order to open a restaurant. You can know how to cook better than anybody else in the world, but it doesn't matter if you don't understand business. Then opening one could pose a lot of challenges.
Uh-huh.
So I worked at that place for a little over 5 years and really, really, got to sink my fingers into how business runs and operates, and the things to do, and almost more importantly, the things not to do.
Hmm.
And and then that business, the original owner of that restaurant, who owned it for 20 something years, she was just done. She wanted to move on with her life and, enjoy it. And so she sold it to another family. Turns out that family was not wonderful. And so I decided, well, what I decided was I was going to go to Italy with my whole family to celebrate a birthday. And when I was in Italy on that trip, it had been a few years since I had been back there, and so on that trip there were so many vegan restaurants. I couldn't believe it. Rome had opened up like loads of vegan. I had lived in Rome previously, and there was like a handful of places, but on that trip there was just so many places to eat. We couldn't believe it. It was mind-blowing. And I really realized that if I didn't go home and do exactly what I was hoping and dreaming to do my whole life, which is open a vegan Italian restaurant, somebody else was going to do it before me, and I
Hmm.
really wanted to be the first. So I went home from that trip. I left that restaurant job, and I started looking for locations for Pura Vita. And I got really lucky when I found the location, because it really is perfect location in West Hollywood, centrally located, small and manageable at the time. And I had no idea if anybody was even going to be interested
Hmm.
in this type of a restaurant. Vegan is specific enough as it is, but vegan Italian is like super pinholed. I mean, that's like, you know, you have to really, it's a shot in the dark, really. But
Hmm.
honestly, we opened up the first weekend, we had lines down the block, and it was absolutely beyond a dream. I mean, I still to this day pinch myself because I don't even know what happened. I don't know how everybody found out. I don't know what happened, but like
Well,
everyone showed up.
I can tell you that you've been doing such a good work. I mean, the reviews on Pura Vita are just amazing. You like score, 5 stars for the service, the quality of food, the ambiance, the diversity of many options, because obviously it's a full array. You can see the carbonara, the zeppole, the ciabatta. I mean, I'm just mouth watering. I think I'm just gonna get on a plane and come and see once you go back to the West Coast. I mean, there is a lot of excitement because uh, unfortunately, there are, you mentioned, prior to becoming a restaurant owner, assisting people to understanding the plant-based diet would help them with some of their medical conditions. But I think what is sometimes lacking, it might be education or feeling that it's sorts of deprivation feeling, whereas here it's an abundance of colors and flavors and textures, and that not everyone can replicate in the ingenious way that you have done. So I just like kudos to you. I really, I want to come to Pura Vita now.
I would love for you to come. That would, you must.
Yes, absolutely. So we're gonna take just a 5-second break, and we'll be right back.
Do you love Italian food? Want to learn the secrets of homemade pasta, sauces, and traditional recipes, just like Nana used to make? At Mondo Italiano, our authentic Italian cooking classes bring the taste of Italy right to Pittsburgh. From fresh pasta to regional specialties, every class is a delicious journey through Italy's culinary traditions. Spots fill quickly, so reserve your seat today. Call us at 412-478-2681 or find us online. Mondo Italiano, where Italy comes alive one dish at a time.
Un caffè, per favore. For more than 35 years, Pittsburgh has started its mornings with La Prima Espresso. From freshly roasted beans from around the world to the perfect espresso or cappuccino, every cup is crafted with care. Stop by and enjoy the warmth of our baristas and familiar faces, or bring the taste of Italy home. Order online today at laprima.com. La Prima Espresso, Pittsburgh's coffee. Okay, we are back with Tara Punzone. We're talking about the Vegana Italiana and a way of embracing a plant-based lifestyle without giving up on food, on flavor, traditions, and creativity. So you open up the restaurant. The restaurant is going very well. You're just like, I don't know how people knew about it when you first opened. So we're gonna fast forward to a little bit to the production of your amazing book, and I wonder, how did you find even the time to write it?
That's an excellent question.
The time is the challenge, the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs or for people with a busy lifestyle. But any page just looks and tastes wonderful. So I'm gonna go and try the Calabrian peppers and potatoes as soon as we log off. So tell us about the birth of Vegana Italiana.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I opened the restaurant, of course, everybody was asking me if I had a book. Do you have a cookbook? Do you have a cookbook? And I thought, well, no, of course I don't have a cookbook. I was nobody last week, I mean, nobody knew who I was. How would I have a cookbook? So I wanted so badly to make a cookbook, but now I'm running a restaurant. I was there 16 hours a day, and then very shortly after that, we took over the space next to us and opened the pizzeria.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's basically, in the beginning we were operating that as two separate restaurants. So now I'm doing two different things. And then we opened a third location in another part of LA, which we had for 4 years, and we just recently closed it down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There was no way I could possibly work on a book. It requires a lot of time, and although I wanted it so badly, there was just no way. And then at some point as the years went by and my team was established and I have people in there helping me to run the restaurants and to be in the kitchen and doing all the things, people who I really trust, who it takes years to get to that point. Once I got there, though, I realized, okay, I really need to try to figure out how to make the time to do this book. So I spoke to a couple of people who already had cookbooks, who made recommendations to me on a co-author who could help me, because I
Mm-hmm.
realized that if I was going to do it, I really needed somebody with experience to help me do it. I've never written a book before. I don't know what the process is, and I don't have 100% time to dedicate to it. So I needed help. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found Gene Stone, who's an incredible writer, super, super smart and wonderful man. And it turned out when I reached out to him, I thought, oh, this man is never going to get back to me because he's like a very well known, best selling author.
Mhm.
And I reached out to him, and it turns out that he lives 3 blocks away from me and comes to Pura Vita on a regular basis.
So he was already a fan.
I mean, it was like the most perfect thing. So, yeah, so we decided to do this book together, and without him, honestly, I would still be trying to finish it because there's no way I would have I would have ever accomplished it in the timely fashion that we did. And it took 3 years, if you could believe that, and that was seemingly quick. So, without him, I would never have been able to do it. So he was an integral part of the whole process. His experience and his patience with me was like just absolutely the most important thing. I learned so much, and I love learning from people who are like, really people who you look up to, who have all these experience. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe I'm alone, but sometimes you feel like, oh, why would that person spend their time with me? But he really took his time, and it was wonderful. So, yeah, so we're super proud of this book, and um, we already joked around about book number 2, but slow down, right?
So, yes, so in the table of contents, you talk about your story, then the Italian vegan pantry. So let's get practical. Let's give some essential staples of what every vegan Italian pantry should have.
Every every Italian pantry, period, should have excellent quality olive oil. I always talk about the importance of the oils that you're using. That's been a major topic lately, just even in the news about seed oils and these types of things being bad for your health. I am really all for cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, um, top quality. I think that this is one of the most important ingredients that you should have in your pantry.
Mhm.
It changes the way your food tastes for the better, and it also is better for your health. Um, in addition to the oil, of course, really good tomatoes. Canned tomatoes are super important. Please don't use poor quality. Uh, I'm really a sucker for a DOP San Marzano tomato.
Mhm.
I think that these tomatoes are so sweet and
Yeah.
delicious straight out of the can. You don't even have to, before you do anything to them, you could take a bite right out of the raw tomato in the can and it's delicious. So if you start
Yes.
with that, you're in good shape.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that this is something that's very important that, we take for granted that people know this, and, they just don't. I mean, that's just not something that people are aware of. So I think that these small little details are really important. I tried to explain that in in the list in the pantry. Um, and as far as the vegan part of it, of course, nuts. I use a lot of cashews. I'm guilty of it. They're just so versatile and so easy to turn into anything, cheese, cream sauce, whatever it is. So cashews are pretty important. Nutritional yeast is an
Mhm.
ingredient that for vegans is very important.
Mhm.
It sort of has this like very cheesy,
Easy. Mhm.
yeah, and it's really important addition to a lot of my recipes. Also turns out it's also good for you, that it's like pure B12 vitamin. So, but that's definitely not why I eat it.
For the flavor and the
I
aroma.
just love the flavor. Not part of the book, but put it on popcorn. It's incredible.
Okay.
um, yeah, I mean, there's certain ingredients that you just must have all the
Mm.
time in case you want
Yeah.
to whip something up. These are the things that you're going to use most
On a
often.
regular basis. So
Yeah.
if many listeners might want to eat more plant-based foods, but they might, if they haven't embraced the lifestyle yet, but they're approaching, whether it's out of curiosity, whether they want to make changes, but sometimes they fear complexity. Again, sometimes it's lack of education. So I'm not going to ask you what is your favorite recipe, but I'm going to ask you what might be maybe 3 top recipes that you, from your book, that you would recommend to a beginners to master, to start with.
That's a good question. I think the marinara sauce is the first thing that you should make because it's very easy to make. And I think you'll be surprised by how easy it is. It's not intimidating at all. Anybody can make this. Pay attention to the ingredients. Like I said, the DOP San Marzano tomato, and you'll be super happy with the results of that sauce.
Mhm.
Once you complete that, I would say it's a tiny bit more complicated, but not much, is the cashew ricotta.
Mhm.
This is the recipe that is repeated in the book many times in other recipes. So that's a really good place to start. It's not complicated, and it freezes really well too. So if you make a big batch of it, I always recommend portioning it into smaller sizes and putting it in your freezer. So this way you can pull out what you
What you
need,
need. Mhm.
and then whip up another dish in the book without having to, make the cheese every single time. It freezes really nicely. Um, oh boy, and then you need to have something sweet.
So I did see your tiramisu, but I don't
It's
know
so
how did you
good.
go. Let me see if I'll definitely have a picture of it. So yes, you definitely told us beforehand, some of the techniques that you use of the cashews to replicate some sort of cheesy texture. Is there, was it maybe the cashew, or was there another ingredient that really surprised you as a most successful substitute in Italian cooking that,
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the vegan part, I think, the other nut that is, uh-oh, have I lost you?
No,
Oh,
I'm here and we are enjoying pictures of your
amazing.
tiramisu.
The other ingredient that I use a lot are almonds.
Hmm.
And on a recent trip, I was in Sicily for a while, and it never occurred to me that they're doing this in Sicily. They're making almond ricotta, and it has nothing to do with being vegan. They're just making it because almonds grow there, and they use it. They use their local ingredients pretty heavily. And I was so surprised by that. I wasn't expecting to see this type of to see an almond being used for these types of recipes just naturally in Sicily. So that was really exciting for me. So I have 2 versions of the ricotta in the book. One is cashew based and one is almond based.
Hmm.
The almond one is much lighter, and I think really good for cold dishes, salads and stuff like this. So it's completely different from the other one, and I definitely recommend trying both because you might prefer one over the other, but they're quite different, and I love both of them equally. But I love almonds. I mean, also almonds are like, you know, so versatile, but they do have the taste of the almond. So that's what the bigger difference is between the cashew and the almonds. The cashew doesn't really provide any taste. It just turns into a cheese. But the almonds really, you can still taste the flavor of the almond, which I love. So, um, yeah, it's definitely another ingredient staple that you should always have
Hmm.
in your kitchen pantry.
Yeah. So it looks like you are filling indeed a void in, I think, in the literature, or maybe because I've not been exposed to it as much as before. I'm curious about everything, but I'm not a chef or wherever. I dibble in the kitchen, and this is kind of really opening up a new horizon. And I hope that people are going to go beyond their the stereotypes and the misinformation that is around it. Again, I feel that you opened up a good Pandora box, whereas people might associate, restrictions and so forth. So you talked about embracing a vegan lifestyle. You talked about the clothing selections and so forth. Are there other aspects where you're able to combine your environmental activism and your ethical food production, or that you would like more people to start embracing? Like, it starts with small steps and then people can take it up, can gradually.
Yeah, I honestly, like, one of my main goals in writing Vegana Italiana was to show people that food, I mean, in the Italian culture, Italian American culture, food is everything, but it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyed. It's meant when you're cooking, you're with your family, you're with your friends, whatever it is. And it's not something that was a burden. It was something that everybody really loved to do. And I think people get really intimidated, by, you know, trying to follow a recipe or cooking something in the kitchen they've never done before. And I just really encourage people to have fun and not overthink things. Just really enjoy the process. You know what? If it doesn't work, who cares? Make something else. It's not
Uh-huh.
that big of a it's not that big of a deal. The idea is to enjoy the moment and not overthink the cooking process. And I think once you can really feel that in the kitchen, feel like a camaraderie with somebody else, whether it be family or friends or whatever, that's when you really fall in love with the idea of cooking. And I hear people talk about how intimidated they are by, even following a recipe in my book. And I went really out of my way to make sure that these recipes were simple enough for somebody to make in their kitchen with zero culinary
Mhm.
experience. You do not need to be a trained professional to make these recipes. They're really, really simple. I intentionally did not put the more complicated ones in the book.
Mhm.
The ingredients that I use are simple ingredients you can find at any store. I'm not including truffles and these things that you have to go on a hunt for. It really, which I have in the restaurant, and of course those are wonderful, but I really wanted to express the simplicity of cooking. And one of the things that I try to tell people is, my grandmother was from Calabria. It's a part of Italy that's poor. And believe it or not, most of the things that she was making when I was a kid were already vegan.
I was
And
going to say that. Yeah, meat
yeah, and
was
like people just
a
don't think about
privilege.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was like vegetables and lots of potatoes and beans and pasta and just very, very simple ingredients that grow in the ground. And um, these are the best things in the book. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
pasta is my main food group in life in general, but these things, like you said, the peppers and the potatoes, like, I mean, it doesn't get more simple than that, but they're so delicious in their simplicity. And I think that I really, really encourage people to try that, both from my book and also from their own culture.
Mhm.
Um, I try to tell people, like, because I hear all the time somebody say, "Oh, I really would love to be vegan, but I'm from the South, or I'm Nigerian, or I'm Irish, whatever it is." They have this idea that they can't transform their cultural dishes into plant-based dishes, and it's just not true.
Mhm.
There's
I
always
think
a
you're giving us
way.
the tools to do that. Yeah, yeah. And now that you mentioned your grandmother from Calabria, obviously the tropea onion that Calabria is famous for, along with the hot peppers. But just there is nothing more fragrant on a summer day that having fresh chopped tomatoes, the tropea onion, good olive oil, some
Oh,
oregano, salt, and you call it a day. I mean, you can really stuff your face with it because it's so simple but so full of, flavor. And
yeah, you're making my mouth water just thinking about it right now.
so,
I'm here in Chicago on a cold,
oh,
gray day, and I'm starving.
well, Chicago, I'm sure has the place where you've been last night, but the food scene, I'm sure is pretty varied there. You talked about one of your many talents was also photography. Were you involved in the photography of the book, or in this case, it's you were so busy just writing the content that you outsourced the photography?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I thought about doing the photography myself, because that would be amazing. But when I really had a reality check of the amount of work that goes into, yeah. So no, I found this incredible photographer, Ed Anderson. He understood what my vision, what I wanted the book to look like. And he came to the restaurant to do all of the photography. So it was like an incredible experience for me because I was in my comfort zone, in my restaurant, in my home space. And he came to me and he just like basically set up a studio on one side of the restaurant. And for a week, we just, I was just in the kitchen making dishes exactly the way I want them to look. And he created these incredibly beautiful photographs, and I was so thrilled with how the photos looked. I wish every page could be a photo because he was just like
Yeah, it is.
incredibly
It is
talented.
amazing. Indeed, indeed. So before going into closing, is there anything else that you would like to share with us? And again, we'll put links to the book on the show notes. But you're going around maybe some upcoming appointments even in December that people can come and meet you in person. So tell us anything and that you would like to share.
Yeah, so Sunday, November, what is it, the 23rd? Yeah, November 23rd, I'll be in Portland at Vivian Culinary Books. And then happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll all be home cooking for that. And then after that, on December 4th, I'll be in Miami at a book signing. And then on Monday, December 8th, I'll be in Brooklyn, which I'm super excited about because I hope, all
It's a
my
home turf.
all my peeps come out and support, That's
Absolutely.
Powerhouse Books in Dumbo, Brooklyn on
Mhm.
Monday, December 8th. And then after that, I'm going to spend the rest of the month of December cooking basically because that's like the biggest time of the year that all of the traditions get pulled out of the hat, right? So
Absolutely.
we
And
do
I'm
catering at the restaurant,
Mhm.
for the holidays, and it's a really important time of year for us. So, but the thing I encourage people the most to do is just not be intimidated, not overthink the cooking process. Just have fun, enjoy it. If it doesn't come out perfect the first time, nobody's judging you. It's just food.
Mhm.
Have fun with it and try things and don't worry about making mistakes. I think that's the most important part of that
Uh,
book.
Absolutely. And I'm going to share the website of Pura Vita. That's where you can make your reservations. And Pura Vita Los Angeles, you can get the cookbook. You can meet Tara in person. And again, I really will thank you for the time that we spend together. It's been a pretty amazing conversation. But unfortunately, our time together has come to a conclusion and Big Ben ha detto stop, and it's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning into the program, and if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topic you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on or where you catch your favorite podcast. And also don't forget to share because sharing is caring. So I would like to thank again my guest, Tara Punzone, a beautiful book, Vegana Italiana, great as a holiday gift and great as a first book to dive into the vegan lifestyle with delicious, delicious recipes. I would like to thank our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano and La Prima Espresso. E until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, grazie.
Grazie a te, ciao.